Welcome back to Tefillah Chabura number 4, everybody. This is very exciting. Hodul Hashem Kitov. And in today's Chabura, hopefully we're going to be exploring some more of the inyanim of Tefillah, more of the inyanim of how we're going to be, what Tefillah means to us, more experiences of it. We're going to get into some core things. Today, we're going to be going through, as if you remember from the other weeks, we were talking about these different names of prayer. Last week we did Pilul or Tefillah, and then we have a whole bunch of other ones on our list that you can see over here. This week, today, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be going through four types, and I lumped them together. They're called Bitzur, Sha'avah, Tzeakah, and Neakah. This is the avodah for today. This is what we're going to be working our way through, these four. And hopefully we're going to be able to knock them all out smoothly. I know we get started a little bit late, but hopefully we'll be able to knock them out pretty smoothly, and we're going to break them down, bring them into us. And now these four, I lumped them together because I found them to be four like levels that we can work through, starting off with Bitzur, then Sha'avah, then Tzeakah, and Neakah. This does not mean to say that we're working our way up from level 1 up to level 4. It's just that there are four different types that I found that they work together in my mind to put them together. So I hope that it will also be special for you, and I hope that we'll be able to explore and connect. So let's daven together, especially, right? We're learning about tefillah. You can't start learning Torah b'chlal without davening for it, but especially when we're dealing with tefillah. Hashem, please help us to learn about these pathways of prayer, these levels of experience, and Bezrat Hashem, with your help, Hashem, with your help, we'll be able to connect to tefillah, which is, as we've been learning, is so essential to our existence here, so essential to living an aligned life with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and being able to fulfill whatever roles we need to play. So, Hashem, please bless us and open us up. Okay. Oh, look at this. I knew okay. Shtabach Shemo. Didn't get to finish everything. It's been very busy. So we have this this malbim sitting on two different spots. It's not really, the malbim doesn't even really need to be there. My apologies. Okay, so what does Bitzur mean? Okay, so that's the first type of tefillah that we're going to be getting into. The pasuk that Chazal give us, right, when they're listing these different forms of prayer, the pasuk that it gives us is Batzar, is in Tehillim 18:7. Batzar li ekra Hashem. Batzar li, when when I am within an experience of constrictedness, of tightness, of smallness, of pain, I call out to Hashem. So the truth is that we see over here, there's already two different types of prayer. You have Batzar, Bitzur, and Ekra is the Lashon of Kriya. Ve'el Elokai ashavea. And to Hashem, I look for a Yeshua. Yishma mehechalei koili. Hashem from his heichal will hear my voice. Vishavasi lefanav tavai ba'aznav. And my screams, Vishavasi lefanav, and my screams in front of Hashem, tavai ba'aznav, should come into his ears, so to speak. So, and I brought another pasuk, Mina meitzar karasika, anoni b'merchavka, from an experience of constriction, I call out to Hashem, and from there, Hashem answers me. And I think that what's going on over here, so I did bring the malbim, we could just look at the malbim on the page, but Tzarli Ekra Hashem, She'oz Tzarech Ani L'Tfila, Ve'ekra'eu Mitoich HaTzara. That Batzarli Ekra Hashem, that in a moment that I need prayer, right? In a moment when I'm mamish lacking, I'm in a place of constriction, I'm in a place where I don't have something, I cry out to Hashem. That's really what the side of the tefillah of Bitzur is, right? Bitzur is just that I'm calling out to Hashem from a place of constriction. Now, this is a very, very fundamental idea. I'm just going to move this guitar because it's giving me a little bit of echo. My apologies. Much better. So, in the of Bitzur is really an absolute fundamental to understanding Jewish life and prayer. We already have been speaking about how life works, right? We spoke about how an Adam is put into this world, and because he is put into a world that has chisaron in it, that has lack in it, and really, this entire world is just one crazy experience of chaser, one experience of lack, one experience of being incomplete. That we then can reach out to Hashem through prayer and begin to bring shlemos into our lives. And this is such an essential idea. This idea of crying to Hashem from a place of chisaron. This is not. It's like sometimes we think, I have a chisaron, I have a lack, so I need to daven to Hashem. But Kabbalah, that's not true. Really, is that you need to daven to Hashem, so Hashem gives us a lack. Hashem gives us a chisaron. He gives us something that we're finding and we're missing, and therefore we're able to cry out to Hashem from it. The experience that is given to us, the experience that we come into the world and we see, Hashem, I am lacking, it's mamash there for us. It's there for us to be able to open ourselves up, to be able to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be able to recognize that I need to reach out to him. The Chazal, right? The classic Chazal, or one of the classic Chazals for this is the tzaddikim asked, they said, why are the avos and the imahos akaros? Mipnei ma imois akaros. Why were the our mothers, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, why were they all barren? They weren't able to have children. And the Gemara answers, because Hashem wanted to hear their prayers. So I know that it bothered me. It probably bothers many of you as well. He's saying, seriously? That's why? What about Shevach? What about Hoda'ah? What about Shira and Zimra? Well, Hashem didn't want to hear those type of prayers. Hashem didn't want to hear the prayers of just mamish, like hearing thank yous for having children when they were in their 20s or 50s or whatever it is. Like, why did Hashem dafka need to do it through chisaron? And there's something very deep to this, which hopefully we're gonna begin to tap into, but it's so deep and it's so scary that I'm not even sure that I really want to even say it, but there's something essential about pain. That when you experience pain and when you experience chisaron, it cuts right to the essence of your being. It cuts right to the shorish of who you are. And it hurts. It hurts. You should know there's a wild Gemara. The Gemara in Baba Kama lists a bunch of different types of mazikin, right? There's different types of things that cause damages. So you have the damages of fire, you have the damages of a cow goring, you have the damages of a boar, right, that you create. But one of the damages is called mave. And so the Gemara asks, what is this mave? Mem beis ayin hey, what is it? And so the Gemara argues about it, but one of the Shittas says that mave is Adam, a human who's mazik, a human who damages. And the Gemara says, why does the Mishnah use the term maveh? And it says, because maveh speaks the essence of man, that man is always in the state of chisaron. From a lashon of im tibayun bayu, that if you mamish, if you need, and if you're lacking, you cry out for it. And that's mamish what the Gemara and Baba Kama it like tells us. Like, the essence of a human is that he's suffering with chisaron. The essence of a human is that he feels a lack, that he's missing something, and we're constantly searching for this. On another place, I love this quote. But a big tzaddik once said, if you have the questions of life and they're burning inside of you, and then you open up the Torah and you open up the Sfarim of the tzaddikim, your mamash going to drink it. It's going to be like the most amazing waters. But if you're just opening up this Sfarim without really tapping into your own inner questions, your own inner angst, your own inner search, your depth, your soul screaming out, what is this life and what does it mean and why am I suffering? And why is my friend suffering? And why is there pain? And what in the world's going on here? If you don't feel that and you're not like mamish screaming out, Val, then your mama's not going to feel, you're not going to feel that answer. It's interesting. The bracha of shahakal, we only make on water when you mamish are thirsty. If you're not thirsty, then the water isn't deserving of a bracha. But if you're mamish thirsty, there's nothing higher than making a shahakal. Shahakal niyabivaro. So back to here, what we're talking about is that the chisaron that a person feels, that lack, that need, that yearning, that hole that burns inside of you, that's what means to daven Bitzur, to cry out from a place of chisaron, to cry out from a place of lack. Trevor, you with me? I must say it's a little bit hard when all the videos are off. Not going to force you, but it would be nice. Good. Nice to get the thumbs up also from the Chavra. Okay, moving along. You should know there's a beautiful Gemara.
I can't always be there.
There's a beautiful Gemara. The Gemara asks a question and says, "What's the highest form of prayer?" In Tehillim, we see there's a type of prayer called a Tefillah LeMoshe. Whoa, a Moses type style prayer. A Tefillah LeDavid. A Tefillah LeAni. These are the three that are quoted. So which one's the highest? Gevalt, who's going to say what's higher? A prayer for Moshe, a prayer for David? But the Gemara answers that Tefillah La'ani is the highest. Why is Tefillah La'ani mamish the highest? Because a Tefillah La'ani, an ani, when a human being is experiencing lack and pain and chisaron and constriction, it burrows to the essence of his humanity. And that type of prayer, a tefillah la'ani ki atof, the tefillah of a poor man, whatever you're poor with, right? Whether you're poor with because you're lacking awareness, you're poor because you're lacking money in your bank account, you're poor because you're lacking a life partner, you're poor because we're lacking children, we're poor because we're lacking closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever it is that we're lacking. When tefillah la'ani, when a poor man davens, ki atof, and he becomes so wrapped in that experience goes so deep. That mamish is the highest experience, and that's why the pasuk in Tehillim says, "Tefillah la'ani ki atof v'lifnei Hashem yishpoch sicho," that his prayer mamish comes lifnei Hashem, and this is mamish so deep. It's so deep to understand that as high and as deep as your prayer can go, if you mamish have the most kabbalistic kavanot, all the kavanas of the highest realms. But if an ani really feels his pain, that mamish is even higher. It's a wild thing. I want to share a wild piece of information for you, but there's something called a kameya. A kameya is when tzaddikim, many times they'll write these holy kabbalistic letters and shapes and ideas and words and shemot, and they put it into a thing, and they'll write them for different people, for childbirth, for sickness, for whatever it might be. There were some tzaddikim, when they wrote a kameya, they would just put a name in it, their name. They'd write Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, and they'd say, put this on your neck. And you go, I don't get it. What do you mean? Where's all the shemot? He says, you don't understand. All the shemot and all the Kabbalah and all these things, they're important also, but they're making a tzinar. But do you understand that I'm also a tzinar, that you're also a tzinar, that when the tzaddik says his name, the simple name of the tzaddik, that itself is a tzinar of bringing shefa into this world? And do you know that your name, you yourself, are the most beautiful tzinar? That even if you don't know all the kavanot, even if you don't know all the highest and holiest and most beautiful things, but simply screaming out to Hashem, because you're you, because you're feeling your pain and you're feeling your chisaron, you're feeling that lack, and that lack is burning inside of you, that itself, mamish, goes straight lifnai lifnim. It makes a connection between you and Hashem, goes straight in. I feel like jumping. There's a beautiful. I didn't even know if we were going to get to it today. There's a beautiful, beautiful comic cover that I found today. Like just wild that I came across it. I'm gonna jump. We're gonna jump all the way to the end, and we'll come back to where we are. All right. So let's say focus with me. We're gonna just jump through all the slides till we get to the end, and then we'll have to come back. Mom. Yeah. Here we go. Here's the Hamak Davar. Okay. So we're gonna learn it together. Shnei ofanit tefillot hema miskabel mufnei Hashem. There's two types of prayers that are miskabel in front of Hashem. Echad. If you guys want me to point to it in some way, I can probably figure something out. But if we're good, we're good. Echad, the first one, is Misha Eno Yachol Lesader Tfilase B'Loshen Tzach Kimedar B'Lefnei HaMelech. Sometimes there's a person who's not able to say his prayers clearly, like the way a person should talk when he's in front of the king. Aval Mikol Makom, even so, Kivan Shetzoek Minahamat Halev, and when he cries out from the groaning, the depths, his heart is just crying out b'meriros, with pain, feeling the chisaron. Hakadosh Baruch Hu shemea tfilasai. Hakadosh Baruch Hu hears his prayer, even though he's not speaking it like a proper statesman or a proper nobleman who's coming in front of the king and putting forth a list of beseeching the king for something. You're just mamish coming in, you're crying out, and your mamish just like, "Ay Hashem." Now Zeksiv, and this is what the pasuk says: "Ahavti ki yishma Hashem, es koili tachanunai." Hashem, you've heard my voice, my screaming, my crying out, crying from a place of chisaron, and tachanunai, and you considered it tachanunim. Pirush, he explains, hakol levad, the sound alone, beli hatzaat devarim, hema tachanunai, that without even coming out, even without having proper wording, just crying out from a place of chisaron, that itself is already considered tachanunim, which is beautiful words filled with pain, filled with beauty. Ubishas yitzias Mitzrayim, ksiv vayishma Hashem es kolenu. Right, this is good because we're going to be getting into these psukim in just a moment. Right? So it says that Hashem heard our voice. And he says, what does that mean? Hainu hakol levadai. It was just the scream. It was just the sound of our voice. It wasn't necessarily proper speech, in Lashon HaKodesh, said with the proper sounds. It was just, we were crying out to Hashem. And this is what Chazal teach us when they said, Hashem just wants your heart. Rachmana, Hashem, the one who's the Baal HaRachamana Amiti, Hashem, Liba Boy wants your heart. And in this way, Shemevakesh Rachamim b'mara slave, that a person is asking with deep rachamim, with a bitter heart. Amru, on this Chazal tell us, Tefillah b'chol lashon, that you're allowed to daven tefillah in any language. Because really, you shouldn't be able to talk in any language. You should only talk in proper Lashon Kodesh and things. But Gevalt, because of this truth, because of this idea that because of this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitaveh, and that when a person cries out with a real, true, and wholesome heart, it goes higher than anything. This is why they said, Chazal said, you could even daven in any language. Ve'isa b'saita reish perek zayin, mishum derachmihu hainu hamedaber b'moras leiv balarachamim yisparach shemei atzaras nafsha. Because a person speaks authentically, open, from the depths of the pain of his heart, Hashem mamash hears him. Right? This is like a person who comes in front of a king of flesh and blood. The proper way, the derech eretz, the proper form, is to speak in the language of the king. If he's American, you speak English. If he's Israeli, you speak Hebrew. If he's French, you speak French. But if a person comes and he's mamish, he's suffering from the depths of his heart, and he comes in front of the king, and the king doesn't speak his language, but he's crying in front of the king. The king will look to somebody and be like, okay, ein melech shel chesed makbid alav. A king of kindness would not be makbid on these words. And it's perfectly, the king would be perfectly fine and say, Gewalt, if what does the guy need? I'll give it to him. Like I hear his heart. Right? We're going to see there's a beautiful pasuk that we're going to touch on. In it's later in Shemais. It says about a poor man. If you take a something from the poor man as a mashkin, as the English word. If you want to, you give somebody a loan, so you want to take something to hold on to. But if it's his clothes, if it's his, pajamas that he needs, he goes, make sure Hashem says, make sure you give it back to him.
Collateral.
Thank you, collateral. He goes, Mamash, make sure you give it back to him because Hashem says, if the Yis Yidala is going to cry out to me, I'm going to hear him because I can't not hear somebody who cries out to me. Doesn't make a difference if he's speaking English, if he's whatever he's speaking. But if he cries out to me, he speaks out to me, I'm going to hear him. So Hashem says, Mamash, be sensitive because I listen to prayer. So over here, the Hamek Davar continues, Kacha Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rav Chesed. So too HaKadosh Baruch Hu is filled with Chesed. Afagav she'ein derech eretz milavakesh milafanav kim b'lashon HaKodesh b'lashon HaKadosh Baruch Hu medaber kaviyachol es neviav. Even though it's only proper to speak in lashon kodesh and proper verbiage, mikol makom misha ba b'mari nefesh b'mari sicha v'noyach le'lefarish b'lashon chol HaKadosh Baruch Hu shemai b'chol lashon. Somebody who comes and he's real and he's coming and he's being raw and vulnerable and honest with Hashem, Hashem hears him. But it's not even, it's definitely not even in, it's even better than just going, oi, which we're going to get to soon. So that's the first type of prayer, right? This prayer that's just, it's authentic, it's real, but it's not necessarily so beautiful. Havel, he says, but yesh tefillah she'ena ba b'maras alev ki im bechein arach safasayim. Right? Sometimes if you're davening for somebody else, you're coming in to ask for your friend. So you come in, it's almost like you're an in-between guy, and you step in front of the person who you're asking from, and you speak it out. Hey, brother, you can hear me out. I would like to talk to you about this person who's struggling. Maybe you can help out, right? And you come with proper language. Right? Then it's only proper that you speak with the proper language. Right? And so over here, he was mentioning this. This is the Hamek Davar in Devarim, and he's saying that Hashem wasn't listening. The Jews were crying, and for whatever reason, and it says, "V'lo shama Hashem lekolchem, bikolchem." Hashem didn't listen to your voice. What's that mean? Your voice is simply the cry out. Hainu maras nafshechem. When the Pasuk says, "V'lo hazin aleichem," that's l'shmo advar ne'imim. Hashem says, "Mamish, I'm not listening. Like I can't hear your words. I can't even hear you talking." And these two forms of prayer, are here we go. These two forms of prayer are important to recognize and to understand that we're going to try to give space to both of these forms of prayer. But the type of prayer called Bitzur is when you're beginning to come from a raw, vulnerable place of chisaron, of lack, and of need. So we can also, first of all, how are we? Any questions or thoughts? I'm open to hearing things. But I'm just going to keep on going. Unless somebody has a question, feel free to, on the chat, on the thing, you can type in. Over here, I also brought down a Ramban. Now, we mentioned the Ramban earlier on, right? If you remember, right at the beginning of our Chabura, we spoke about the Machlekes, the Ramban, and the Rambam. So these are the words of the Ramban. In the Rambam, it has, in the end of the Yad HaChazak, there's another sefer called the Sefer HaMitzvahs. So he lists all the mitzvahs. In order, he counts 613 mitzvahs. And in mitzvah number 5 is the mitzvah of prayer. The Ramban, called the Hasagas of the Ramban on the Sefer HaMitzvahs, and over there, the Ramban argues on him, and he says, I don't think that it's a mitzvah. Specifically, obviously, it's an essential thing that we need to do to daven to Hashem. But I don't think it's a commandment necessarily to daven every single day. And within there, these are his words that he brings out. He says, well, maybe there is a commandment to do this type of prayer called Bitzur, this type of prayer where you're davening from tsar, when you're in a place of tsar that you need to cry out to Hashem. So I thought that this would be a good place to bring it in as well. So let's read. Umasha darshu b'sifri. Right, this is the middle of the words of the Ramban. Umasha darshu b'sifri. What we've learned from the Sifri ula avda is a Talmud, right? That to avda, to serve Hashem, that means to learn. Davar achar, another meaning the Sifri brings down zutfila, right? Ula avda b'chol levavchem. It's talking about prayer. So he says, even though Chazal are teaching us that ula avda, right, to serve Hashem means the avoda, ezehu avoda shebalev. What is the avoda of the heart? Harezu tefillah. So asmachtahi. It's not necessarily an essential place where we learn out the mitzvah. It's just a support. Or maybe it just means that part of avodas Hashem is that we should learn Torah and that we should daven when you're in a state of need. We should have our eyes and our heart focused on Hashem like a servant is looking to his master. This is what it means, and he's basing it on the pasuk that you should daven to Hashem when you're in a state of need. On the pasuk says, when you have a milchama come onto your land, when there's a constriction, there's something constricting you, an enemy that's coming and it's putting the clamps on you, and you blow your horns, you blow out in the horns, and you'll be remembered in front of Hashem. And so this over there is referring to the mitzvah of prayer that you should cry out to Hashem. It's a mitzvah when there's any type of pandemic or lack of rain or any communal issue, that as a community we need to gather together, lizoik lefanav, to scream out to Hashem b'tefillah b'trua, with prayer and with blowing horns. This is what Shlomo Melech said. Be'otzar shamayim, if we have a lack of rain, v'lo matar, uksiv rav kiyeh dever kiyeh shidafo and yirako and arbech sil kiyeh, all these different types of natural calamities that are coming on us, or human, or if we get it with an enemy, kiyiter loy oivoi, right? Ba'aretz sha'arav kol nega kol machla kol tefila kol tchina asher tia lekol adam lekol amchi Yisrael asher yidun ish nige levavoi. Right? Shlomo Melech said that if any person has a need, any person suffering, whether it's a communal, even if it's an individual thing, and the person comes in feeling that pain in his heart, and he raises his hands in prayer and cries out to Hashem, will be answered. So over here, once again, we see that this is in many ways could be even the most essential, right? Last week we spoke about tefillah as pilul, as working through and bringing awareness of Hashem into our minds and hearts, and bringing ideas and relationships with Hashem from the edge of our consciousness into and that we're bringing it from the edge of our consciousness into our minds and hearts. Here, once again, we're actually taking it we're talking from a place of chisaron, that anything that you mamash have any type of chisaron, we're also going to reach deep into ourselves and cry out. It's a different style prayer. Bitzur. We're crying to Hashem from a place of chisaron. Now, I want to also point out, I'm not sure if that one of the ways that Hashem chose that the hashgacha, that the way that he's going to function in this world, Hashem, so to speak, made a deal with, like, as he created the world, the way he made the world work is that if you don't communicate to him your chisaron, it's as if he doesn't see it, and it's as if he doesn't hear it. And we mentioned this already back in the beginning, and I'm sure you all noticed it as we were learning the parshios this week of Mitzrayim, that Hashem promised that he's going to take us out of Mitzrayim. But it wasn't until we davened, it wasn't until we cried out, it wasn't until we turned to Hashem in tefillah that he heard us. So we got to open up. You feel pain and you're like, why isn't Hashem helping me? We got to talk to him about it. That's the first level. This is the first aspect. It's called Bitzur, talking to Hashem from a place of chisaron. Okay? Getting late. We're going to move right along. Okay? Are we good with this, Hevra? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. Now we're moving into Sha'avah. Okay. The next two that we're going to do right now is called Sha'avah and Tzeakah. What's Sha'avah? So this is the pasuk in Mitzrayim. Vayi vayam arab mahem. This is right. We had at the beginning of Parshat Shmos 2 weeks ago. It was in those many days. Vayamas melech Mitzrayim. The king of Mitzrayim died. Vayanchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avodah. And the Bnei Yisrael groaned from their work. Vayizaku. And they cried out to Hashem. Vatal shavasam elolikim. And their cries went up to God min ha'avodah from their work. So once again, over here we have a few words of prayer. We have anacha, which is groans. That's an aspect of, well, just natural human groaning. Then you have vayizaku. They cried out. Vatal shavasam, and their shava went up. And so what we're going to really need to break down right now are two types of prayer. One's called shava, and one's called Tzeakah. So we're going to jump right into Tzeakah. I think it just might make it easier to hear both of them together. So once again, we have, so let me talk about shava for a second before I jump on. What is shava? So shava is a type of prayer that Bitzur is when I'm talking to Hashem and I'm telling him and I'm davening from a place of chisaron. Shava is when you begin to scream. I start like when a person, it's not necessarily for every moment. It's not necessarily for every type of prayer, but sometimes we have the experience that I feel that this thing that I'm lacking, I cannot live without. And it's almost like we're throwing a tantrum. When you mamish, you're so emotionally overwhelmed that you're just like, Hashem, I need it. I need you. I need you to be there for me. I'm living a life and I'm feeling so disconnected from you. Hashem, I need you in my life. And your mamish yelling and you're howling and you're like begging and reaching out to Hashem and you're screaming it out with words. Right? We say this in the beautiful tefillah of Ana B'Koyach. Right? The last thing we say, Shava Seinu Kabel. My screams you should hear. Ushmat Sa'akatenu. And you should hear my screams, Yodea Ta'alumot. And it's interesting, what's Shava? What's Tzeakah? Right? Because it seems that they're both types of screaming. So the first one, Shava, is screaming out to Hashem from a place of, with words. Screaming, but mamish from a place of like, I can't live here. Like the Bnei Yisrael were screaming in Mitzrayim, like in this pasuk. But Tal Shavasam, their screams came up to Hashem, like they couldn't, I can't handle this. Hashem, you're giving me the situation, I can't deal with it. I need your help. Desperado. And it comes from a place of mamish feeling like I can't live any other way. Tzeakah, let's read the couple of the words of Tzeakah. Right, so we had first of all the pasuk from before. Then we have the next one in Shmos 22, Chaf Beis. Right, I mentioned this pasuk to you. By the way, there's a second pasuk, a few pasukim later. I didn't bring it, but once again, the pasuk over there says, "Im ane ta'ana." It's talking about a poor man. If you're gonna persecute a poor man, if you're gonna pain the poor man, ki im tzoik yitzak elai. If he screams out to me, shemaya eshma tzakasai, I definitely will hear his screams. And the last pasuk that I brought over here, also obviously these psukim, there's millions of psukim, well, not millions, but many psukim. I brought these for each for a reason. And this last one is tzoak l'neakah, tzoak libam el Hashem, right? They're cried out from their hearts. So over here, what I wanted to bring with these different types of tzeakah from these psukim is expressing how the type of screaming that is just a screaming out to Hashem, Tzeakah, comes from the mamish from inside your heart. It's like, by the way, breast livers, this is a standard breast liver move. If you live near the forest and you're not a breast liver, you might have heard them howling at night. But mamish, just when you go out to the feld, and there's nothing like it, by the way. It's dark. You go out in the middle of the night, and you mamish just go alone. You go with a couple chevra, divide up in the forest till you're far enough that you can't hear anybody. Maybe you could hear each other when you're screaming, and you just mamish scream to Hashem. Just, ah. But what's the difference between these different screams? What's the difference between the Shava scream and the Tzeakah scream? The Shava scream, in a nutshell, the Shava scream is a scream with words. And the Tzeakah scream is a scream that maybe when your words have run out, or maybe you don't even know what to say. Maybe you're just sitting there and you mamish, I don't even ain milim. Sometimes I'm in a place I don't even know what to ask Hashem for. Sometimes we're so confused. I don't even know what to ask you for. And you just go, oh, you just yell. Wow. So look at this we have this beautiful Zohar over here. That Mamish brings down the difference between Tzedakah and Sha'avah. Listen to this. Let's learn it together. Tzedakah, this is a beautiful Zohar. It's obviously it's a Zohar on in the beginning of Shemais. Tzedakah v'Sha'avah b'mayis parshan. The type of prayer called Tzedakah and the type of prayer called Sha'avah b'mayis parshan. In what way are they different? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Ein lecha Sha'avah. There's no type of Sha'avah ela b'tefillah, only within prayer. What does it mean? It means that Sha'avah is a form of prayer using words. Shnemar Shema Tefillah Hashem v'Shavasi Azina. Hear my prayer, Hashem, and my Sha'avah type of prayer, please let it reach your ears. And also another pasuk, Elecha Hashem Shivati Elecha Vatir Ba'eni. A bunch of psukim that all speak about that Sha'avah is a lashon of prayer. And over here, I believe the Zohar is specifically saying that you're using words. Tzedakah, but what's tzedakah? Shetzoik ve'enai omer klum. Your mom is screaming out, and your mom is you're not even saying any words. You're just screaming. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, because of this, Hilkach gedola tzedakah mikulan, that tzedakah is mamish higher than anything else. Shetzedakah hi balev, because tzedakah, the scream of the tzedakah, is not even coming into your mouth and mind, because your mind is what makes words. It's just coming from your heart. Hado diksiv, this is the pasuk that we brought before. Tzoak libam el Hashem, that they screams, that their heart screamed to Hashem. And so then he ends off just to point it out. Tza'aka u'za'aka davar echad hu v'zeh kroiva la'kadosh baruch hu yoser mitfila va'anacha. Screaming tza'aka is mamish even more dear to Hashem than even a proper formulated word. Diksiv ki imtzoik yitzak elai. This is the other pasuk we brought. If you'll scream out to me, Shemaya eshma tza'akasai. At this type of, Hashem says that for a type of prayer called tza'aka, I'm definitely, when a person does tzoik yitzak elai, Shemaya eshma, vadai, Hashem says, vadai, I will hear his scream. Back to the pasuk of Ana B'Koyach. A bunch of years back, I was sitting and I was bothered. We say Shava Seinu Kabel, accept my Shava type of scream, Ushma Tza'akatenu, and here my Tza'aka type of scream, Yodea Ta'alumos. So obviously now that I learned this, we understand that Shava and Tza'aka are two types of screams. But a few years back, I mamash didn't know this. And so I thought another path, another type of difference between these two screams. Shava Seinu Kabel, accept my Shava when I'm screaming out to you because your mamish could hear me. We say Shava Seinu Kabel, Ushma Tzaka Seinu, but hear my screams, Yodea Ta'alumot. What's Yodea Ta'alumot? Yodea Ta'alumot means the one who knows the deepest mysteries. I ask you, brothers and sisters, if you hear somebody screaming to you, why do you need to know mysteries? It's not a mystery if somebody's screaming to you. It's not a hidden thing. It's not a ta'aluma. It's not something that you don't know. Right? If a guy's yelling, he's screaming, I need your help. It's not a big mystery. But chavra, sometimes the deepest and the most profound sa'akat halev, most profound scream of the heart, is the one that hasn't even reached your vocal cords yet. And sometimes the tza'aka that we're talking about is when a person is in pain and they can't even cry out. Maybe it's the guy who's sitting next to you trying to daven in shul, or maybe it's you sometimes, and the guy next to you looks at you and doesn't see you in pain, but your heart is mamish breaking. And you're just screaming, and the scream could mamish fill your head, and it fills your heart, and we say, Hashem, you're Yodea Ta'alumot, you know the scream. And Gevalt, there's another scream. There's a scream that has yet to even be felt by the person that needs to scream it. And that's mamish, the deepest scream. Sometimes you see somebody and they're so far and they're so confused and they can't even see themselves straight. And the person mamish doesn't even realize how much pain he's in. He's like numb from all the pain. Sometimes somebody is like, they're so in pain that they're just denying all of it. And that pain, it's mamish the biggest taluma. And Hashem, we say, Hashem, Yodea talumot, you mamish know the deepest mysteries. You know all these different screams. You can even hear, like Reb Shlomo used to say, I could smell a Shabbos on a Yid. When I walk down the street and you see a guy being Mechal Shabbos, I see the Shabbos. I can smell the Shabbos that he's going to have in 5 years from now. I mamish kavach. Wow. Hashem could mamish hear the scream of a Yiddilah that hasn't even begun to scream. Hashem says, Terem yikro v'ani ane. Before you even begin to call out to me, I already am answering you. Because Hashem mamish hears your scream before you even knew it yourself. And this is mamish Sha'avah and Tzeakah. Sha'avah is the more formulated scream. Tzeakah is the more raw scream. Even to the point, Sha'avah's with words, Tzeakah's without words, or even to the point, like we said, Sha'avah's mamish sounded out, and sometimes Tzeakah is mamish, it's not even coming out, it's just filling your head, and sometimes it's not even begun to fill your head or your heart. It's just there waiting to come out. We know that Esav screamed, right? Vayitzak Tza'aka Gedola Umara. He cried out a big scream all the way back when Yaakov took the brachos. Excuse me. And that scream needed an answer. Shamoa Eshma Kiyim Tzorik Yitzhak. If he screams out to me, even if it's an Esav, if he screams out to me, Shamoya Eshma Tzakos, I'm going to for sure hear him, Hashem says. And until Mordechai came along, 1,500 years later, something like that, 1,000 years later, whatever it was, until Mordechai came and he gave a scream, there was no answer for Haman's scream. It was Mamish waiting for that. Okay, Kevra. So we covered three of the prayers, and we're gonna get to the last one now. So the first one, like we said, was Bitzur. Bitzur is simply davening to Hashem from Chisaron. The second one we said was called Sha'avah, which is a scream formulated through words. Tzeakah is the next level of screaming, which is mamish without words. Then we have another one, another type of prayer, and it's called Neakah. What is Neakah? Vayishma, this is, by the way, the next pasuk after some of the psukim from before. Also in Mitzrayim, Vayishma Elokim es na'akasam. Hashem heard their na'aka. Hashem heard their screams. Vayizkar Elokim es brisai es Avram es Yitzchak ve'es Yaakov. Hashem heard their na'aka. Evra, what in the world is Neakah? So I mamish got to tell you, Neakah. Whoa, Neakah is so deep. And I need you, mamish, like we mamish got to open our hearts for Neakah. Neakah is a sound that your body makes, any type of sound, right? So in general, a Neakah, included in Neakah would be anacha. Anacha are like groans and sighs. And what does it mean to groan or to sigh? It's mamish when a person, we're not even ready to cry out to Hashem in prayer. Almost maybe we think it's not even prayer, but we're learning that we're going to learn this is mamish prayer. And a person just goes, oi, oi, not even to Hashem necessarily at first. Obviously, we want to bring it and we want to consciously bring those ois, those sighs, those groans to Hashem. But in Neakah is mamish just a groan. It's just a bodily sound that we're reaching out to Hashem for. Because you know something? This idea that we started formulating from Bitzur, that a person, an Adam is created with chisaron, every sound is really a cry to return to its shoresh. Every sound that an Adam makes, whether it's the sound of a baby when he gets that first cry, that it's suddenly in the world and suddenly it's like, "What? I'm naked in a world of pain. What is going on? Give me my mother. I want to go back to my shoresh. I want to go back to being one again. Why am I coming into this world of pain?" And that's that first scream that a baby cries. Or whether it's a cry of a yid or an adam trying to plow his field because he's trying to make a parnasa, or whether it's the sound of the hustle and bustle on Wall Street, or it's the sound of a tumult of a base medrash filled with yidden learning Torah and Tefillah. The sound that humans make is always a sound of trying to get back to oneness. Every single sound, by the way, movement. What is sound? Sound is vibrational movement. Everything that we're doing as humans is trying to get some type of place of shleimut. We want to be content. We want to be one. We want to be back to utopia. We want to get to utopia. We want to have bliss. We want to have serenity. We want to have nirvana. We want to get back to that good feeling. And all the movement and all the sounds and everything that comes out of a human is it's yearning to get back to Shoresh. We're yearning to get back to Echad. That's Neakah. Every cry, every sound, every groan. Not only that, but even every ouch and every whimper. And maybe even every burp. But Kaval, that's Neakah. Neakah is everything. When Hashem says by Mitzrayim, by Yishma lekimis nakasam, that Hashem heard just the human sounds they were making because they were in a place of chisaron, they were in a place of mamash. And mamash, that brought vayiz. Maybe we can say that that's mamash why it from there the pasuk continues vayizkar Elokim as brisai. Hashem remembered the deal that he made with humanity, with Avram, with Yitzchak, with Yaakov, that I am going to be the one that's going to give shleimus to Am Yisrael. When Hashem heard it's not even about the holiest prayers of the Kohen Gadol. It's a simple yiddilah with a whimper. A yid who's sitting and he's working through the tremendous pain that he's been suffering and the trauma that he's going through, and he's able to just elicit like even the wimpiest of whimpers, the groans, a pain, the heart, whatever it is, just that human sound of I am human and I'm broken and I'm not complete and I want to get back home. And there's so many places, so many Torahs that we could learn. And Rabbi Nachman, though, is mamish so gorgeous on this. We're going to learn just one little piece in the beginning of in Likutei Moharan, lesson 8. And there's so many other pieces. I was so torn what to bring down, but I think this one is just a good introduction. You can go learn the whole Torah here. And you can learn many other Torahs on it. But listen to this. We'll just learn it a little bit together to hear about what's going on with mamish, with a groan, with this, the sound of a human. And then Rabbi Nachman starts off and he says, Hine yakar genuche v'noya me'ishi Yisraeli. It is beautiful, it is precious when a yid makes a krecht. Kihu shleimus hachasroinus. That when we make a krecht, when you make a bodily sound, it is bringing, it's being mashlim, it's bringing completion to your lack. That through the neshima, through the breath, which is every breath, mamish brings us it's the breath, it's the wind of life, it's the spirit of life. Through that, nivra olam, Hashem created the world, like the pasuk says in Tehillim, ubruach piv kol tzavam. Right, with the wind of his mouth, with the neshima, mamish, Hashem created all the heavenly celestial beings. V'chidush ha'olam, and bringing renewal, yeh gam kein b'vchinas haruach. also comes through the wind and through the breath. Like he brings down the pasuk also in Tehillim. Hashem will send the wind and to create and there will be a renewal of the face of the earth. And not only is it a renewal of the earth, but who gam kein chiyas adam, it also brings a rejuvenation and a revitalization to humans. Chiyas adam hu neshima, because the chiyas, the existence, the vitality of an adam is mamish in his breath. Like it says in Bereshis, Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim, that Hashem breathed into the nose, into the mouth of man, soul of life, but a neshima, a breath of life. Uksiv, and we know it says also, Kalasher nishmas ruach chayim ba'apav, anyone who has a neshama or a breath of the flow, the airflow of life in his nostrils, that's somebody who's alive. Ukamosha amru, and like it says, the Chacham said, "Im techsar neshima," if a person's lacking the breath, kival techsar chayim, he lacks the life. However, this is mamish so deep, especially now with Corona and everything. It's so powerful. I mean, I know when I was sick with Corona, Baruch Hashem, I'm healthy, but I was losing that breath. I couldn't breathe. And so many Yidden out there, we need the neshima. We need to breathe, call on neshama, to halil, call every breath, every mamish breath, we mamish praise Hashem, and every bit. And then when you're feeling a chisaron of existence, you need to reach out to a neshima, you need to reach out to a breath, you need to reach out. Oh. Nimtza, says Rabbi Nachman, ki ikar chiyas kol advarim hu b'chinas ruach, that the essence of the vitality of everything is in the ruach, is in the air, is in the bechina of the ruach. When a person is experiencing a lack, ikar hachisaron hu b'chinas achiyas shales davar, the essential lack that the person's living with is that he doesn't have the chiyas, he doesn't have the vitality for that thing. That's that breath, that's that life. The ruach is what gives chiyas and what gives isness and existence to that thing. And what's a groan? The ha'anacha, and the groan, who are richas haneshima. Right? So when you're sighing, right? When a person groans and when a person sighs and he's giving this sound, this human sound of chisaron, really what he's trying to do is he's yearning to get back. So he reaches back, he goes, the you extending the breath. By the way, many times you'll see this. It's very, very, very interesting to see it in humans. It's very cool to sometimes you see it in a baby. A baby sometimes will go and they won't breathe for like, I don't know, a minute or two. They're sleeping, little babies. And then suddenly, like, you're watching them, like, are they breathing? And then they go, and then they get like a deep resetting breath. Many times you might find this with your own self. Maybe you're working at the computer for a while, and maybe you don't even notice that your breath sometimes becomes very shallow, and suddenly you go. And sometimes you need to do it consciously to return yourself to that equilibrium. But that's what's going on. Rabbi Nachman says all the way at the bottom, the last two lines, when a person groans, or he oys, or he goes ah, or ooh, or makes any sounds with the chisaron, he ends up bringing, because really every sound that you're making comes from an intake, right? Hashem mamish gives us the breath, and then we cry out for our chisaron. And he brings, and when a person breathes in, hu mamshich ruachayim lachisaron, he brings this vitality, this wind of life, this breath of life, this neshima, and he brings this shlemos into the lack. Ki ikar hachisaron hu estalkos ruachayim kanal. Man, I'm blocked out over here. Oh, there we go. The ikar lack that we have is mamish is when we're missing that ruach chayim, and through an anacha balkein ayidei anacha mashlam achisaron, when a person through anacha, through groans, we mamish can bring back like chiyus, deep chiyus. deeply. And it's not just the groans. Like I know that Rabbi Nachman over here is specifically talking about the groans, but I'm expanding that to any sounds. All of these sounds, we need to bring the theos back in. And it's cool as Rabbi Nachman countless times is always teaching us that the experience of the pain actually is also the human experience of how we bring Hashem back into it. There's like your cry out is itself the way that we bring the Yeshua. And this can happen many ways. Like, I know for myself, sometimes I remember I once met a woman who when she was like showing me an apartment, me and my wife and I. And when she leaned against the wall, she put her hand on an open nail. And as soon as she touched it, she went, ah. But she didn't just say ow. The ow immediately became, oh, Hashem. And I was so nispal, I was so moved. It hit me so deeply. I was like, wow, this person worked on it. And I was like, I want to make that part of my life. And I myself also, sometimes I'll bump my toe and I'll go, Hashem, Gavalt. Mamish, turn the same sound, but without even changing the sound to turn it into reaching out to Hashem. Just the sound of an ow. Sometimes you're standing on a ladder and suddenly the ladder like slips a little bit. Maybe like it's trying to like get it to be up against the wall properly, and it goes, and you give like that gasp. Rabbi Nachman just said, wow, that gasp itself is a yearning as me, an Adam who's lacking fear. I might fall, catch my ladder. All of that is where you really gasping to, who you really reaching to. Gewalt, it's up to us to make every one of those gasps, every ooh and ah and e and every sound, Mama's just reaching out to Hashem again. Bring it all back to Hashem, every bit of human vibrational movement, reaching back to Hashem. And this is Neakah. I'm going to pause right here just to hear if there's any thoughts or questions. I know it's late, Chevra, but we started late. If you guys are still up for it, I can go through. I just kind of, to clarify, I gave a little want to give a little sikum and just like a simple avoda for each one of these things. But first, any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, so you mentioned for a friend, you're supposed to, maybe I misheard this, but what I thought I heard was for a friend to use proper language, or was it Davka the opposite? Even for a friend, also Bitzur and Tzara is acceptable.
Good question. And thank you, because this will help clarify it. I didn't mean necessarily that when davening for a friend, you should daven this way. When you're davening for yourself, you should daven that way. I was just expressing how sometimes your experience is different. So sometimes when you're asking something for your friend, you're not going to be writhing in pain because people look at you and go, why are you writhing in pain? It's your friend's pain. But Gewalt, if you feel your friend's pain so deeply that that imamish makes you go, Hashem, I can't handle this pain. And he goes, what pain? You're not in pain. He goes, my friend is, and that makes me in pain. So that's Gewalt. If you're faking it, there's nothing to talk about. We're not talking about faking, right? We're talking about authentic prayer. But in general, when you're davening for your friend, then you're davening, it is a little bit of distance, and therefore you're going to be able to present yourself, right? You're going to be able to collect your thoughts and present them in front of Hashem in more of a surah, more of a form, a proper and respectable form. Like if you're coming in front of, it's two ways, Valt. There was an interesting, it just as I heard this year, right? This year we had Rosh Hashanah was Shabbos, right? I believe so. And so it says that Imamish, saying it's too long. I'll tell you guys afterwards. But the idea is that when your mamish, sometimes you just come in front of a king and you're just crying out. And that's one type of prayer. Another type of prayer is when it's more put together, when it's tachnunim, you start off with shevach, praising, then you move into asking for what you need, and then you end off with saying thank you. There's a proper form, and you use the proper, terminology and language, etc. Answer the question? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So, however, just before, I know it's late, but we're going to end off with this, going through a simple avoda of each one. So what's the avoda of Bitzur? Like if you let's practice it for this week. What would it mean? Simply feel the feel the constriction, feel the lack, feel the struggle that's in our life. Really feel it. And from that place of feeling that pain, cry out to Hashem. So what it would mean, it would look like, it would be, it would be like me pausing and saying, Hashem, I really feel the fact that I need a full refuah. Please, Hashem, I really want to be close to you. And you stop and you feel that aspect of yourself or whatever it is that you feel lacking, and you dive into Hashem from that place. Simple. Sha'avah. What would Sha'avah look like? Sha'avah is getting a little bit more raw and intense. So I would say isolate and focus on one essential lack, meaning don't just go into random, all different lacks. Go to one, choose one that is really essential in your life, that you're really in pain, that you're missing. And create a whirlwind. Build it up within yourself. Just shout it out to Hashem. Hashem, my life depends on me having this. Even though on another level, clearly my life doesn't depend on it because I don't have it. But no, there's comes a time that as a human, we can scream out to Hashem, Hashem, I need you to give this to me. And to the point where you actually visibly do it. Like maybe go out to the forest to do this prayer or go into a quiet room, and really get into it. And just be like, Hashem, I really, really need this. And like, mamish, focus on how much you need this lack to be filled. And scream it out. Use your words, but scream it out to Hashem. Now, could be at some point that your screams will no longer do it. Your words will no longer work. And that's mamish when you turn it into Tzeakah. And you mamish just go, like your mama's screaming out to Hashem on this lack, your mama's screaming for a zivug hagun, you're screaming to have whatever that shleimut that you're looking for in your life. And at some point, the words that you're trying to say just don't do it anymore. They're just not good vessels. And you just turn it into just a howl, into a scream, and just scream to Hashem. Just let that oy burn out from inside of you. Never. I'm mamash saying this. Like, try it. Experiment with these things. Like, don't let that. That's why I was like, with these 4 things, like, try these 4 different modes. And here's the last one. The last one's mamash, as you said, right? Turn random sounds into expressions of prayer. The next time, maybe you're slurping your soup. Slurp it. And mamash, reach out to Hashem with it. But Gewalt, obviously, when you're starting, start off with the easier ones. Start off with groans. What?
Your mama's caught us slurping our soups.
Oh, mamish, that's so halig. Your mamish already slurping. So in general, I would say that it's easier to start off with some groans, with some sighs, right? Because those are easier. You can just like feeling like pain. Oh yeah, Hashem, I need you. Or maybe you do an of gratitude. By the way, I'm very into humming meditations. They're very aligning. So, doing ums and stuff, or doing all the vowel sounds. By the way, maybe this is actually a good one. Do the vowel sounds of the aleph bays. Just do it's murdic. You should know. It's worthwhile to spend your time doing the all the sounds. It's and by the way, it goes very, very deep. Big tikkunim. But even in of gratitude, just go like, feel the gratitude, feel thank you. Choose something that you want to say thank you for. Instead of saying thank you, just make it a human sound. After you do those groans, you could try to, once you become a little more professional, you could maybe even do a chuckle, maybe an ouch, or an ooh, a fear of like, the ladder moving. You could try to bring those in. And when you become a real expert, maybe you could even push your limits and even make mamash your burps and your farts into mamash avodas Hashem. Wow. L'chaim, l'chaim, chevra. Just know that everything in our life is mamish all a tefillah tash, our shoresh. Every bit of our human existence is mamish just reaching back out. And look at it when you're walking down the street, Hashem. I'm walking down the street. The movement that I'm making is really all just me reaching back out to you, Hashem, trying to get back to my shoresh. L'chaim, l'chaim, chevra.
Chaim, thank you for that recap.
Thank
I
you,
was
thank you.
curious
Good job.
if this works with